You cannot hold me without cause. This is a flagrant violation of my rights. I want to speak to my lawyer. I want my call.
Well, I got calls, because you let the sun set on your black ass.
In 1962, Tony Vallelonga worked at a prominent New York City nightclub, serving as both a bouncer and a waiter. One evening, he observed a notorious gangster, the head of a powerful crime family, enter the club. The gangster, who cherished his hat, left it in the luggage storage as club rules prohibited headwear. His attachment to the hat was so profound that he threatened to burn down the club if it were lost. Tony, overhearing this threat, conceived a mischievous plan. When the gangster later requested his hat, the custodian informed him it was missing, enraging the gangster, who reiterated his threat to destroy the club if the hat wasn't recovered by the next day. This forced the club owner to temporarily close the establishment. Feeling responsible, Tony sought out the gangster. He returned the hat, claiming he had snatched it from a thief who subsequently escaped. Tony then pleaded with the gangster to forgive the club owner. Believing Tony to be a hero, the gangster rewarded him with a sum of money. The following morning, Tony returned home to his wife Dolores and their 2 children. Later that afternoon, he awoke to find Dolores serving rings to 2 black plumbers who were fixing a faucet. After they left, Tony immediately discarded their used glasses, repulsed by the idea of sharing them. In 1962, racial segregation was deeply entrenched in America, with no laws ensuring human equality. White people, including Tony, viewed black individuals as inferior. With the club still closed due to the gangster's threat, Tony found himself unemployed. That afternoon, a friend called, offering Tony a job as the personal chauffeur for the renowned pianist Dr. Don Shirley, or Doc. Intrigued, Tony asked for Doc's address. The next morning, Tony arrived at Doc's house and was surprised to find Doc was a black man, dressed in a bright yellow shirt and a gold necklace, seated on a throne-like chair. Doc explained his upcoming 8-week tour across America, for which he needed a driver and someone to manage his travel schedule, including laundry, for a salary of $100 per week. Tony, adhering to his strong principles, initially refused, unwilling to be a servant to a black man. However, when Doc increased the offer to $125 per week, Tony immediately accepted. On the day of the tour, Doc's management provided Tony with the car keys and a green book, which listed recommended restaurants and lodgings that accommodated black people. Tony's journey as a driver began. Along the way, Tony grew increasingly annoyed by Doc's constant prohibitions against eating, smoking, and talking while driving. Tony's pre-existing dislike for black people intensified due to Doc's demeanor. The first stop was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That evening, Doc and his 2 musical accompanists performed for a white audience. Tony was astonished by Doc's exceptional piano skills, something he hadn't expected from a black person. During their next tour stop, Tony inspected the piano Doc was to use for the evening's performance. Finding it very dirty, Tony requested a replacement, but an officer refused, stating that a dirty piano was suitable for a black man like Doc. Angered, Tony immediately struck the officer. After the show, they traveled to the next town. As before, Tony was captivated by Doc's piano playing. His admiration led him to ponder why Doc chose to perform for white audiences who consistently disrespected him. The following day at their next tour stop, Doc was well received by the white attendees, a contrast to the previous venue. After one song, Doc requested a break. When he attempted to use the restroom, the committee forbade him, directing him to a separate facility designated for black people. Insulted, Doc briefly returned home with Tony to process the injustice. Upon their return to the show, Tony was bewildered by Doc's ability to smile and greet the white audience without appearing hurt. One of the musicians later explained that such humiliation was not new to Doc. He was accustomed to it, even trained to endure insults. He also warned Tony to prepare for even worse racist treatment in the future. The next day, Tony wrote a letter to his wife. Doc, upon reading it, commented on Tony's poor writing and helped him rewrite it with romantic and eloquent phrasing. From that moment, their bond deepened. When Tony's letter reached Dolores, she was deeply moved. The next day, Tony and Doc arrived at a hotel in Memphis. Inside, Tony encountered 2 friends who were confused to see him working for a black man, assuming he was in financial distress. One friend offered Tony a job, which Tony politely declined. That evening, Tony received a call from his friend, asking him to meet at a bar. As Tony left his room, he found Doc outside. Believing Tony was considering his friend's job offer, Doc doubled Tony's salary to keep him as his assistant. Tony reassured Doc that he would only work with him until the tour concluded and promised not to accept other job offers regardless of the pay. He clarified that he was merely going to socialize with his friend. Reassured, Doc calmed down. After returning from the bar, Tony invited Doc to chat in the hotel lobby. There, Doc recounted his journey to becoming a renowned pianist. He explained that a white pianist, impressed by his playing in a bar, offered him a job at a record company to play classical music, which was considered the original music of white people. Since then, Doc had exclusively played classical music. Tony then advised Doc to explore playing jazz, the music he truly desired. Tony expressed that audiences appreciated Doc's piano playing, not necessarily the classical genre itself, finding his performances amazing. Doc was pleased by Tony's support but noted he was contracted to play classical music. After the Memphis show, they continued their tour. En route, 2 police officers stopped Tony's car. One officer ordered Tony out and interrogated him, suspecting Doc, a black man, was a fugitive, and Tony his accomplice. Tony, in rage, struck the officer, leading to both their arrests and imprisonment. At the police station, Doc demanded to know why he was also jailed despite his innocence, but received no answers. Annoyed, Doc threatened to sue the police if he wasn't allowed to call his lawyer. Hearing this, the police finally permitted the call. Shortly after, the police chief was seen answering a phone call, his face filled with fear, repeatedly apologizing and promising Doc's swift release. Witnessing the chief's terror, Tony wondered about the identity of Doc's contact. After their release, they resumed their journey. Doc revealed that due to Tony's actions, he had to seek assistance from the United States President's younger brother, who served on the Attorney General's board, just to secure their freedom. Instead of apologizing, Tony laughed. Their conversation seemed normal until Tony remarked that Doc, despite his immense wealth, luxurious home, and seemingly perfect life, was assaulted. Doc immediately became angry and exited Tony's car. A confused Tony rushed after him. Doc explained that Tony knew nothing of his life. Despite his lavish home, he felt utterly alone. He felt imprisoned by the white people who paid him to entertain them. They respected him on stage, but once the concert ended, they treated him with the same disdain they showed other black people. Doc was lonely, with no white person willing to be his friend. Even black people avoided him, believing his nature was too similar to white people. Doc had always been alone, without friends or family. Hearing Doc's heartfelt confession, Tony remained silent. All this time, he had been envious of Doc, a seemingly lowly black man who earned so much simply by playing the piano, while Tony toiled to support his family. From Doc's story, Tony realized that regardless of their position or wealth, black people's lives were far more challenging than his own. After unburdening himself, Doc returned to the car, and they continued their journey to the final tour destination, an elite restaurant in Birmingham. There, Doc again faced racist treatment. The restaurant manager assigned him a waiting room in the warehouse near the kitchen, while his 2 musical accompanists were given a luxurious private waiting room. Tony could only watch in silence. Inside the restaurant, while Tony was dining, Doc's 2 musicians joined him. One musician revealed that Doc, despite his considerable wealth, undertook this tour to open people's hearts and advocate for the recognition and equal treatment of black people. Shortly after, Doc entered the restaurant. As he attempted to join them, he was stopped by the staff, who explained that black people were not permitted in the dining area. Tony tried to negotiate with the manager, asking for Doc to be allowed to dine in the restaurant just once. The manager refused, offering instead to set up a table in the back garden as an apology. Doc declined, threatening to cancel his concert if he wasn't allowed to dine with the other white patrons. Hearing Doc's threat, the manager asked to speak with Tony privately, attempting to bribe him into persuading Doc to eat outside. The manager remarked that allowing a black man to eat in the restaurant was like allowing a monkey to eat a banana on a golden plate. As Tony was about to strike the manager, Doc intervened, telling him to stop. Doc stated that he would take Tony's advice this time. If Tony wished to see him perform, Doc would eat outside. Otherwise, he would cancel his final tour concert. Tony was deeply saddened, finally comprehending the immense difficulties Doc had endured. After much consideration, Tony decided to leave and cancel their last concert. On their way home, Doc took Tony to dinner at a black bar. After their meal, a waiter inquired why they were both wearing suits when they only intended to eat. Tony explained that Doc was a famous pianist who should have been performing at a fancy restaurant, but preferred this bar because of its delicious food. Flattered by the praise for his small bar, the waiter asked Doc to play the piano and entertain the patrons in exchange for the meal. Everyone seemed to enjoy Doc's performance, and even the band members invited him to a duet. For the first time, Doc experienced genuine joy without having to feign a smile. After their enjoyable evening, Doc and Tony headed home on Christmas Eve. Many positive changes had occurred, altering their perspectives on life. On the way, they encountered a blizzard. When Tony suggested finding nearby lodging for Doc, Doc refused, insisting that Tony needed to be home that night to celebrate Christmas with his family. Doc then drove in Tony's place. After a long journey, they finally arrived at Tony's house. Tony invited Doc inside to meet his family, but Doc, aware of his race, believed his presence would make Tony's family uncomfortable. Doc chose to leave. Upon returning home, Doc resumed his solitary life, devoid of family, friends, or best friends. He suddenly recalled Tony's words that Doc had a choice, free to do whatever he liked, even small things. Meanwhile, at Tony's house, during dinner with his family, Tony heard a knock at the door. Upon opening it, he found Doc outside. Tony was overjoyed that his best friend had finally come. He introduced Doc to his family, and unexpectedly, Tony's entire family warmly welcomed Doc. His family believed Doc must be a good person because he had transformed Tony, who once harbored hatred towards black people, into a genuine friend. Tony's wife then hugged Doc, thanking him for helping Tony write a love letter to her. Doc's goal had been achieved. He had managed to change the hearts of white people, even if only Tony's family.